about what I'm cooking at home, where the travels are, how the restaurants feel. And there's an energy that comes from here that we want to show people that is infectious to this, that you truly do get to make a career and a profession out of something that is fun every day.
Yeah.
And to not lose that and to value that and to understand what that means on a happiness scale to offset some of the other things that come against it.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's an industry that a lot of people should choose. And to do that and not to be relegated to a thing that you kind of like have to do, which is what it has been thought of for a very long time, to truly become and like blossom into this thing, which it's the third largest industry in the United States as far as employment. 1 is the government, 2 is medical now. We used to be 2, and we are 3. But if you look at what we pay, we're half of those other 2.
Yeah.
If you look at the turnover rate, we're less than half. We're like way above those. And there's a lot of looking at what and how we do things that make sense for that, right? Like, no other industry holds to those standards.
Yeah. I look at things like tattoos, and I'm like, the fact that a person can charge $1,000 a day for a tattoo, I'm like, why can't we charge $1,000 a day for what we do? It's art, it's memorable. It may not be like, on your skin, but I feel like it's the same translation. Like that beautiful tattoo is an experience at a restaurant.
Well, and I think that is because everybody is an expert in eating. If you do something like this, I think it's 1,000 times you are a self-proclaimed expert in that. Which everybody, by the time they're like 9 years old, has eaten 1,000 times, right? I think by the time you're 3 years old, you do that sort of thing. So in that time, everybody has steadfast opinion about where that is. Versus tattooing, very few people can do that. You can observe that. You can go through those sort of things. And so if you have this like really intense, like even here's how I know how to cook, here's the things that I like, convincing somebody that is much more difficult. And I think it devalues a lot of what we do.
Oh.
Yeah, 100%.
Okay. I like that. Damn. I like this shit. This is one of the best podcasts I've ever done. I'm telling you. So, Chef, we're back at the restaurant. How long did you work there total?
Off and on, I worked there for... I went to college in between, but I ended up kind of coming back and working through stuff. So I would say from 18 until 31.
Okay.
So 12 years or 13 years.
Damn. So what positions did you did everything, no?
I did do everything. So I went to college and I worked throughout college, and then I went in between I ended up transferring. In between college, I went to Italy to cook.
Okay.
Which was an amazing time.
Where'd you go?
Trade Chigobe in Florence.
Okay.
And I lived with the owner in their like attic for with their kids for like the first month.
How did you find that?
Well, they came to eat at the restaurant.
Okay.
And they liked it so much, and they're like, hey, if you ever want to come to Italy, and of course, like the next day I wrote them, I was like, hey, when am I coming to Italy?
Yeah, right.
Perfect.
And they sent me up for the first month, and then like the second month, they're like, okay, you can't live with us anymore. And they kicked me out to like live with this 40-year-old Egyptian line cook in like a one bedroom apartment.
Oh, man.
Oh, it was amazing. I was making like €400 a month. And I paid €250 a month to live.
Oh,
so
nice.
I had €150 a month to like go out and do things.
Yeah.
And like all the cooks there like took pity on me, and all the servers, so they'd like take me out to hit on all the American girls and stuff like that.
Yeah.
A bunch of fun stories for stuff like that. And I came back and I would go, and I was lucky to be in an environment where it was already somewhat about innovation. We were growing, so at the time I was still employed. I went to French Laundry to work and stage there.
Yeah.
I went to Noma to stage there and go through that. I worked in the test kitchen with them.
Yeah.
And still always coming back to this, group of people in Arizona that were pushing and growing as much as we could. And we had so many amazing people that worked with us in Little Tucson, right?
Yeah.
One of our chefs ended up being Stu Pat's executive chef. Another one worked for Jose Andres. Another one, like a sous chef for us, went to Bennu, and then I think and then he went to Quince. And then after that, he ended up being the youngest 5-star chef in the U.S. We had like all of these people from Little Tucson in this little organization doing all these like things would go out, and Tavel and I would look at each other, and we were running it at the time, and kind of be like, maybe we can do something.
Yeah.
And I remember I was going to buy the group. I had an investor that was going to help. Who's a mentor of both of ours, was going to help us kind of like figure that out.
Yeah.
And And I was like, I got to change this. I'm going to, change this concept and go through this sort of thing. And he was like, if you're changing all of it, like, what's the value? And I was like, oh, let me run it. And I ran the calculation. I was like, just start it.
Yeah.
And I kind of was paralyzed of being in Tucson because I knew how, first of all, grew up in Tucson. I love Tucson for a lot of things, but Tucson was really hard. Like, at one point, we were raising pigs from all the refuse of the restaurant, feeding them away from all the cheese, having them butchered at a facility that was like a U of A facility for, and then drove to the restaurant. It was 2 miles where they lived to the slaughterhouse, back to the restaurant, and then we would make charcuterie from them and age that for another year, and we'd sell that at happy hour sometimes for like $8 for a tasting of 3 of those and 2 cheeses that we'd make, pickled vegetables on it, and people would still be like, "This is too expensive."
It's too expensive. Yeah,
we'd sell pork chops that was like a pound Berkshire pork chop, like way fed, for like $17, and people would be like, "What are you doing? You're crazy."
Yeah, and then they would turn around and tell you about their amazing trip in Italy and France and all the amazing restaurants they went to and all the 5-star places they visited, and you're like, do you not see what I just gave you? And you're complaining, but you're just telling me how much money you spent in France.
But what we realized, and what I realized afar from that, is we started as a really casual place, and we kept doing all these new things, right? And because of that, this relationship that we had with people, it was like changing 10%, 10%, 10%, and it's really hard for somebody to recognize that, right? It's like when you go to high school and then you leave and you go to college, you can be a different person.
Yes.
But to your high school friends, you're always the same person.
Yes.
You're like, I will go back to Tucson. It doesn't matter what restaurants I work at, any of those sort of things. I'm Kevin Fink that I went to high school with. I will always be that, for the better part of that and the worst part of that.
Yeah.
And so what it taught us is that if you're going to do it, you got to jump off that cliff. You cannot bit by bit by bit. And we were really good at learning, and we were really frustrated by that. And I think that we were frustrated because we set ourselves up to fail in that way, and we had really successful restaurants.
Yeah.
The only award in Tucson was like top 5 restaurants. They didn't ever rank anything. And all three of the concepts were in the top 5 like every year, which is amazing. And yet we were totally not satisfied with where we were. And so we came out to Austin. We looked in San Francisco, looked in San Diego, we looked in Denver, we looked in Phoenix. Yeah. And we found Austin for a lot of reasons. One, we wanted to be close to home and family. 2, we knew the terroir a little bit.
Okay.
And how the growing was. It's actually easier to grow here than in Arizona for sure.
Yeah. All right.
And so we knew the struggle and how beautiful things taste in that. And then everywhere we'd go here, people would be talking about food justice issues, flavor, where they were, and it was an environment where that was contagious. And what we were going to do, we knew was ambitious enough where we needed an environment where they weren't going to, Burger King all the time or things like that.
Yeah.
Where they were going to spend a little bit on food at least.
Got you.
And we found Emmer And Rye. I worked at Olame while we were opening up Emmer And Rye. Tavel and I were Uber drivers at night. So
that's the same thing that Furman did.
Yeah.
I just did the podcast with him. Were you guys Uber driving at the same time?
Probably. I think he did it in between. But so we'd stop at 1 in the morning before the peak time of 2 to 4.
Yeah.
And chat for a little bit, wait to get a fare, and then go do the thing.
Yeah. We used to go to Kirby Lanes and get queso and shit.
Yeah.
Sit back and eat queso at 2 in the morning.
More like 4:30 in the morning, 2 in the morning. And then we wake up at 9, go into the restaurant, make sure that it was going and busy, and then when we opened, man, it was not busy at all.
No.
Gotcha.
It was rough.
Did you a lot of press, or did
we
you
had a lot of press? Yeah, we did have a lot of press. We had an amazing PR team. We had a really amazing crew. I mean, we were very fortunate to where the line was full of people that were sous chefs or CDCs at other places coming to be line cooks.
Yeah.
Just wanting to cook the way, because it was, we're milling our own grains. Every pasta was made by hand, fresh. We didn't buy spices. We fermented everything like that. We had only whole animals that we went through in that. So every morning, we'd have the pigs would come in. I'd be breaking all those down. We changed the menu. We did 400 plus dishes the first year.
Yeah.
which is insanity.
Yeah, that's a lot of pressure.
Yeah. Every 2 days we would change. Sometimes every day we change the menu.
You guys must have had some rock hard cooks. Just be like,
we did.
all right, dude,
we were good.
Well, but also you're riding it hard and fast at times like that. And still today we do probably 200 a year, and because that's the whole purpose of that menu is to not catch consistency, because truly if you think about consistency, to me consistency, you're throwing out the top and you're throwing out the bottom.
Right.
Because if you want to be consistent, you cannot catch the thing at its peak. Because if you only catch the thing at its peak, and that's what you're really thinking, even the nice restaurants, there's so much trim and everything goes out and that sort of stuff. To me, there's a soul that's lost in that. And speaking to a masses of the world.
Yeah.
And so for us, we would try and catch something at its peak, use that there, and then right when it was gone, pick the next thing and kind of move through that.
Yeah.
When you're doing it with the animal as well, there's just a dance to it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And the most important thing, too, what we did when we came out here was when we spoke to the farmers, instead of, typically it's, we want 50 pounds of cabbage a week. That's normally what the conversations that those farmers were having with chefs. We want 50 pounds of cabbage a week, just so that they can say, we are farm to table, we're working with this farm and blah. And our approach was, whatever you grow well in this environment, in this soil, that's what we're going to put on our menu. So it became more of a partnership than it became, a vendor proprietary relationship. If that's the right word. But we now had partners with these farms where they would just show up. Like, for example, they show up and they're like, we have 40 pounds of overgrown okra.
Yeah.
What do we do with this?
Dope.
And then we're like, great, we'll take it, we'll pull the seeds out, we'll ferment the seeds, and we're going to use that on a dish.
Yeah.
And we were able to take care of that situation. They had no other outlet. Normally that would go to the landfill, right?
Yeah.
So by us creating these relationships and working with these farms, it changed the focus from what to why.
Yeah.
And we were able to live that every day. Why do we do what we do? And even to this day, Emmer And Rye, there's maybe one dish that you can go and say, I had this dish before, I'm going back for it. And that's our cacio e pepe. Everything else changes.
Yeah.
So you can't go there for the what. You have to go there for the why we do what we do. And trust the chef is creating something that you're going to love no matter what day you go.
Well, and the irony of the cacio, too, is it's funny. It was again, when we were totally not successful still. And we were doing 25, 40 covers a day, just hemorrhaging money. Really emotional time. For somebody who's out there opening a restaurant, going through these things, imagine coming in every day, wanting to inspire and be this leader, and know on the back end how much your business is failing, and watching that dwindle and saying, I'm going to come to a really hard decision here soon, which is I either have to go back to investors and ask for more money. I've already maxed out all my credit cards at this point. My wife's already maxed out all her credit cards at this point. And I got to walk in every day and look these cooks in the face and say, trust me as your leader, I'm leading you down the right path, believe in me, when I see the failure on the other side. Because if I for a second falter in that sort of thing too, then what we're working so hard towards becomes really diluted in that.
Yeah. And
so we're still going through all that sort of thing, and we were putting up a new dish, and it was a pasta. It just failed. It wasn't very good. We would try all of the new dishes every day at throughout the day, but really at 4 to tweak them however we wanted to get them ready at 5:30. And at 4 o'clock we tried it, and we're like, this ain't getting it.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I've got something. And I was like, it's spaghetti with fermented tomato water, which is the thing that we've been doing all the way back since Tucson, dandelion green, alpine cheese, and black pepper. And we put it up, and everyone's like, so good.
Butter.
And butter. And I was like, this is not going to sell at all on the menu. Dandelion green fermented tomato. It's good enough. And so we were like, it's kind of like cacio e pepe, I guess. And we're like, okay. We needed this thing for people to emotionally tie to our food, because the feedback that we were getting particularly then was it was just too weird and austere for people, and they were having a really tough time from afar relating to it. Like if you ate in the restaurant, we had people like cry, come up to the pass, like all sorts of crazy emotional things. And so we put that on, and literally that night, we